Welcome! It's been a little while, but I'm here to explain prepositions. This is something that many students request on a regular basis because prepositions are pretty difficult. And I would say that reason is because we don't have a lot of rules for prepositions. It's a lot of memorization. We use 5 different prepositions for the same purpose sometimes, so it can be quite confusing. So, I will try to explain to you as many rules as possible to help you along the way, and I will give you also some of those phrases you should memorize, and hopefully that will help you in the future. I look forward to working on this with you, and I hope that this helps. Thank you. So I've split this into 3 different groups. First, there's prepositions of place and time, then prepositions after adjectives, verbs, and nouns, and prepositions with certain phrases. We'll start with prepositions of place and time. Okay, so in this section we are going to discuss in, at, on, and cases with no preposition with time words. So one thing to be careful of here is that many students like to use the word on with months when it should be in. Some students also like to put a preposition before next or last when we don't need one. We'll start with the preposition at. So we use at with times, for example, at 8 p.m., at midnight. We also use it with holiday periods, at Christmas, at Easter. We always use at with night, the weekend, and meal times. For example, at lunchtime, at dinner time, at breakfast time. Next, we will look at on. We use on with days, like on Monday, or on my birthday, or on Christmas Day. We use on with days plus morning, afternoon, evening, or night, on Tuesday night, on Friday morning. We also use it with specific dates, on the 20th of June or on the 1st of November. So we will continue here with the preposition in. In, I think, is a little bit easier because we typically use this for a period of time or a duration, like years, in 1992, in 2006. Also months, in December, in June, with decades, in the 60s, in the 1790s, centuries, in the 19th century, seasons, in winter, in summer, and we also always use this with the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. There are some cases where we don't need any preposition at all, and that would be typically when we use the word next, like next week, next year, next month. The word last, last night, last year, last month. The word this morning, this month. Every day, every night, every year, and today, tomorrow, and yesterday. Okay, so now we move on to prepositions of place. Okay, so we will be using the same prepositions here, but these will be talking about place. So we will begin with on. You want to use on if something is on a line or a horizontal or vertical surface, like the wall, the floor, the ceiling. We use on, for example, with on the table, on the wall, on the floor, on the window, on my face, on a plate, on the page, on the sofa, on a chair, etc. And we use in if we want to talk about something that is contained inside a box or a wide flat area. This can be a little confusing, but just try to think of it as inside something. For example, in a house, in a cup, in a drawer, in a bottle, in a bag, in bed, in a car, in London, in England, in the United States. Okay, so continuing with prepositions of place, we are going to use at if something is at a point. I like to think of this like a GPS location on a map. Okay, so for example, you would use this with at the airport, at the door, at the table, at the bus stop, at the cinema, at the pub, at the traffic lights, at school, at university, at the hospital. Those are all some good examples. Now, we also have some that don't really fit these rules. For example, with media or technology, we typically use on, like on TV, on the phone, on the computer, on the tablet. And when we're talking about transportation, we use on a train, on a plane, on the bus, but we use in a car or in a taxi. So it's a little tricky, and we always use at home and at work. Now we come to our second grouping of prepositions after adjectives, verbs, and nouns. We will begin with adjectives plus prepositions. So some examples we will see here that will always be true are famous for, France is famous for its food. Proud of, he is very proud of his new car. Interested in, Julie is very interested in sports. Pleased with, John is very pleased with his new suit. Bad at, they are very bad at maths. Good at, Einstein was very good at physics. Married to, my mother has been married to my father for 20 years. Excited about, I'm very excited about my holiday. Different from or to, coffee is different from tea. And afraid of, I'm afraid of spiders. It's important here that different from and to can both be used, usually from in the United States and to in the UK. Next, we have verbs and prepositions. Okay, so to start, we have arrive at or in somewhere. We arrived at the airport. We arrived in London. Belong to somebody. This book belongs to me. Borrow something from somebody. I borrowed a book from my classmate. Concentrate on something or concentrate on doing something. I concentrated on studying at the weekend. Depend on something or somebody. It depends on the weather. Explain something to somebody. The teacher explained the exercise to the students. Listen to something or somebody. I listened to music. Pay somebody for something. I paid the waiter for the coffee. Wait for somebody or something. Wait for me. Worry about somebody or something. Don't worry about a thing. Okay, last but not least, we have nouns plus prepositions. It's important to note here that some of these nouns are also verbs, and those verbs might take different prepositions. Okay, so these prepositions work for the noun forms. So we will start with the nouns age, attempt, and point. You will use the preposition at. For example, 18 is the age at which you are allowed to vote. Okay, our next group, need, reason, responsibility. You will use the preposition for. What's the reason for your unhappiness? Next group, changes, differences, and increase. You will use the preposition in. Changes in society have meant that young people leave home earlier. Next group, inquiry, investigation, and research. You will use the preposition into. The police inquiry into the theft continues. The next group, cause, example, and way. You will use the preposition of. We need to find another way of doing things. And our last group, approach, reaction, and response. You will use the preposition to. Her response to the criticism was very strong. We've come to our third category of prepositions with certain phrases which have to be memorized. So, as stated previously, prepositions can be tricky, and with this grouping of certain phrases, you really just have to memorize it. So, our first certain phrase is at last, which means finally. After a long journey, at last we arrived at our hotel. At last, I thought you'd never get here. Number 2, on foot, which means walking. I usually go to work on foot. Did you come by car or on foot? Continuing here, we have number 3, by mistake, meaning not meaning to. I dropped the glass by mistake. I'm really sorry. She gave him the wrong book by mistake. Number 4, in advance, which means beforehand. We need to book the tickets for the cinema in advance, or we won't get a good seat. She always buys her food for Christmas well in advance. Number 5, out of reach, which means too high to touch, literally or metaphorically. She tried to grab the kite as it flew away, but it was already out of reach. That job is out of reach. I don't have the right qualifications for it. Number 6, for instance, which is very similar to here is an example or for example. John reads a lot. For instance, yesterday he read 2 books. You should eat more vegetables. Why don't you have a salad at lunchtime, for instance? And the last, in danger, which means in a dangerous situation. When the car started rolling, we realized that we were in danger. Luckily, we managed to stop. The dog fell into the river and was in danger for several minutes. And our final slide of prepositions with certain phrases. Number 8, without fail, meaning always and definitely. She visits her mother every week without fail. I study for 20 minutes a day without fail. Number 9, by chance, which means without planning. I saw Julie at the station by chance. She found the perfect book by chance in the second-hand bookshop. 10, on purpose, intending to do something. She left without paying on purpose. It wasn't a mistake. Did you take my bag on purpose? Why would you do that? 11, for a change, to do something different. Let's have Italian food for a change. We always eat British food. I don't want to go to the cinema again. I want to go to the park for a change. Number 12, on time for, at the time that was arranged. She was on time for the meeting. It started at 9 and she arrived at 9. Why are you never on time? I'm so fed up with waiting for you. 13, to my surprise, I was surprised. I opened the door and to my surprise, it was Lucy. I'd thought she was in Paris. To his surprise, the baby stopped crying and smiled at him. 14, at once, immediately. You must do it at once. Don't wait even 1 minute. She cleaned up at once when she realized that her mother was coming to visit. 15, in common with, something that's shared or the same. People from different countries have a lot in common. We all want to have good lives. What does a cat have in common with a mouse? Well, they are both mammals. That's all for today, and thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped you with your prepositions. Don't forget to check me out on verbling.com. I would be happy to tutor you. Thank you, and please make any requests on my blog of any grammar that you would like to see in the future. Bye for now.